Good morning. Welcome to Leon County Today with Sheriff Walt McNeil. And another interesting topic we've got for you here today, Sheriff. We're talking about teen dating violence. And, you know, our viewers may be surprised to know that I just thought this stat was astonishing. 1.5 million high schoolers have dealt with some form of physical violence in a relationship. And that's just a one-year stat. That is truly remarkable.
Yeah, Shannon, when you think about that, you know, you go back and historically we've talked about bullying. Mm-hmm. That's probably the most pervasive thing we've talked about in the past in terms of what happens with kids in school. You get a kid there that's pushing other kids around and that sort of thing. But it's progressed beyond that.
Right.
We're now talking about dating situations. We're talking about just behavior by kids at other kids. And with the advent of all the stuff on social networks
media
and all that kind of stuff, now we are having people who are challenging other people on the social media platforms, and then people are carrying those actions out. They threaten to do it and then they go out and do it. And we've seen some national footage where kids are in brawls and other kids are standing around videotaping the brawl that's taking place and then trying to put all that stuff on TikTok to get paid for it. So all these different platforms have had an adverse impact on social behavior, particularly with our youth today. And hopefully we can start trying to get some solutions for some of this. And I guess the most important thing, Sean, is trying to get our parents engaged in understanding what's taking place, and not only in Leon County, but all across our country. But I'm always optimistic. I believe that with the coordination of our resources, the relationship we build with our schools and with our parents, that we can start to educate, and then we can start to get some changes made in our community.
Yeah, that's what this show is all about today, is really empowering parents and our community in general, what they need to know, what are those warning signs to look out for, what resources are available. How important is that component? You know, from a law enforcement standpoint, a lot of times we're on the back end of these incidents, but we really have to be proactive.
Oh, absolutely. If we could get our students and our parents engaged in a conversation. We're going to try to do some of that in the next several months, have these conversations around what the kids are experiencing, what are they seeing in those environments they are, and then get their perspective on why is this taking place and what can we do about it. And hopefully we can then start to have some inroads, not only with parents, but in our schools, and start talking about what these issues are. And we can start, I hope, to start dealing with some of the violence that we see that takes place. And I believe it's all interwoven, quite honestly, with respect to, I know you've seen a number of kids who've brought guns to school.
Yes.
And their excuse for bringing guns to school has been, I wanted to protect myself.
Right.
And so all these things kind of merge at the same time, and hopefully we can start working with the parents, with the schools, and with our kids to turn this around.
Absolutely.
And that's what we hope to see happen here today with this conversation. How do we go about getting this turnaround?
Well, we do have a full show for you. We've got the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council Director here to tell us more about what they're doing in the community and how everyone can get involved.
Yes, we've got to get that done, and hopefully we'll get folks all in here.
All in indeed. So be sure to stick around. Coming up after the break, we're going to dig into the issue of teen dating violence. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Kelly O'Rourke, Director of the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. Kelly, tell us about what does your organization actually do?
Well, the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council was made up by the City and County Commission to make sure that all of the agencies in town that are working with domestic violence perpetrators or survivors are on the same page. So together we all meet once a month, make sure we have a well-coordinated community response, and also provide a lot of public awareness and education.
And how many staff persons?
Just one part-time staff person, but our membership is all volunteer, but it's made up of all the agencies. So we have, obviously, the LCSO, TPD, FAMU, FSU, and TCC Victim Advocates. Refuge House is our local service center. So all of the many other advocacy agencies in town gather together once a month to make sure we're addressing any issues that are necessary.
Now, with all of us trying to work together, trying to deal with violence in our community, Tell me about the mission of your organization.
There's two things that research have showed us will mitigate domestic violence in the community, and one is a well-coordinated community response, which we're doing, and the second thing is public awareness and education. So that's the other part of our mission. We have a lot of free programs that on Domestic Violence 101 that are very popular. We go out and train groups, from office groups to church groups, whatever, on domestic violence. Here's the warning signs, what to see, how to find them, when you see them, what to do, how to talk to the person you think might need some help, and how to help them. One of our most popular things right now is prevention. There's a lot of survivors that we help all the time, but then there seems to be always more floating down the river. So we decided to look at prevention. How do we stop this flow from the very beginning? So we've got a really big program that goes out and focuses on teens and how to teach them ahead of time what some of the warning signs are of abusive behaviors in themselves and their relationships, and hopefully stem the tide a little bit of people growing into becoming adult abusers.
Now, I spoke to Sean and I mentioned bullying. Are you guys engaged in any way in terms of bullying prevention? Or?
Well, like you said, they're kind of related in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. When I speak to a lot of the teens, I'll ask them, so if you see a friend's in an abusive relationship, what do? I go punch him, or I tell her beat him up. No. So you see a lot of that kind of thing going on. That violence seems to be an appropriate response to a lot of things. Anger is an appropriate response to a lot of things. So this is kind of tied together, that we're always teaching them that violence isn't an appropriate response, especially in a relationship. If you just come at a person with anger, you're never going to get to what you really want from them, which might be an apology for they hurt your feelings, or a hug, or something to that effect. So we're trying to teach them in these trainings also better communication and conflict resolution skills that work with friends and teachers and bosses, anybody. So it's not really just relationships, it works in their entire part of their lives to hopefully stem that kind of constant jump to anger.
Yeah, how pervasive is that? We talk about, I think you're mentioning teen violence and dating. How pervasive is that in our community?
Sadly, about 1 in 3 teenagers will say that they've been a victim of domestic abuse. That includes verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. It's pretty pervasive. And the teens that do suffer from domestic abuse or any kind of relationship abuse like that, a lot of times end up falling into a cycle of alcoholism or drug abuse, depression, thoughts of suicide, and also perpetrating violent behavior. So it's kind of a big systemic problem. Ending this idea that violence is the way to get things done.
We've got situations where kids are involved in violence. They've been involved in violence perhaps in their household. Mm-hmm. Are you guys seeing that a trend or anything where an abused kid turns out to be an abusive person, him or herself?
Absolutely. That's one of the problems, is that cycle of violence. If you grew up in a household where you just saw your parents pushing and shoving and screaming and throwing things, that's how they settle their issues. And if your aunts and uncles and your older brothers and sisters and your whole community, that's the way they do things, seems normal to you. I remember speaking to several victims who told me, well, I just thought it was normal that he would push me and I would push him and we'd scream at each other. That was sort of what I've known. And so if they don't know any different, they'll just repeat the cycle in their relationships, and their children will see that, and it just continues and continues. So that's one of the main reasons we see this a lot in certain communities.
So you're saying then, Kelly, that there's a great need out there for us to try to break that cycle
Absolutely.
of violence that takes place in the homes, because it manifests itself in our communities.
Absolutely.
Up next, what are the warning signs of an abusive relationship? And Kelly has details on a must-see video. Stay tuned. We're back with Kelly O'Rourke, Director of Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. This month is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Kelly, what are the warning signs out there for persons in terms of violence taking place in relationships?
Well, if you see, first of all, physically, obviously, if you see any kinds of bruises, particularly bruises under their arm right here that looks like they've been pulled and twisted,
Yeah.
something like that. If you see any bruises on their neck, especially, anything like that. And a long-term bruising, if you see that bruises in a lot of different colors, then you can tell that's a long-term problem. So be aware of that. Any bruise that doesn't have has any kind of an excuse that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like if it's on your neck and you say, oh, I ran into a door, really? Also, a lot of times, a lot of the survivors will become very withdrawn and they don't talk to anybody. They're very isolated, don't stop talking to friends, they stop talking to their families, stop doing a lot of hobbies they want because they're really being controlled by the perpetrator who says, you know, I want to know where you are at all times. Also, you want to look out for constant surveillance on their phones. If the person is like, I want to see your phone, what's on your phone, who are you talking to? You know, very controlling and jealous like that. As somebody who's also telling you what you can and can't wear around town. All those are signs of abusive, controlling, and verbal abusiveness to teens.
So when these kids see these signs and see that this is an abusive relationship, why do they stay in them?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. Probably the number one reason is they think they love the person. They think they love them, and they think that they're going to change. And so they want to stick with it. A lot of times also, teens are pretty new at relationships. So they're a little insecure and low self-esteem, and they get all those emotions and hormones roaring at that time. So everything's very confusing. And sometimes they don't have a lot of experience in relationships.
Okay.
You know, older folks, sometimes we've had enough experience, we could meet somebody for a few minutes and no, not gonna work, but they don't. And so they get involved and they get very deeply involved and they don't wanna leave. A lot of times, I've heard other girls say that, well, he's really popular, so I get a lot of other perks. If I leave him, I'm gonna leave all those friends and all those other connections, so those things. And sadly, one of the worst ones is the threats. Somebody will say, if you leave me, I will text, you know, all those naked pictures I have, or I will tell somebody that you smoked pot once, or something like that. There's a lot of threats to leaving. I'll kill you, I'll hurt you, or I'll kill myself. So that's another reason they stay, you know. And usually it takes the average person about 7 times before they finally leave.
Wow.
They'll break up 7 times, go back, give them another chance, because it's emotionally difficult, obviously, to lose a relationship. But if you stick with it, and you stick with your friend, you support your friend, stand by them, eventually, with good support, they can come to realize, I deserve better than this. You know, the perpetrator likes to battle your self-esteem, make you feel like you're a loser and you're not worth it, and you're ugly or you're fat or you're stupid or whatever it is that upsets you. So if you can stick by your friends and help support them and give them positive encouragement to counter anything negative he's doing or she's doing, and hopefully with some support they can end the relationship.
So do these teens turn around and share this information with their parents? They tell the parents about the abusive relationship?
Hardly ever. About a third of the teens don't tell anybody. And most of them don't tell parents or adults. A lot of times the biggest group that they have is their peer group. They'll talk to their friends. And that's because you don't want your parents to maybe, if you tell your parents, they might say, well, you can't see that person anymore and block you from that, or the parents will hate this person you supposedly love. So they usually talk to their friends about it, and that's why we have the Teen Peer Advisor training with the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. What we do is we go out and teach the teens how to spot the warning signs of a domestic violence or an abusive or dangerous relationship. If you see those signs in one of your friends, what do? How do you talk to them about it? How do you approach the subject? And then depending on what answer you get from them, yes or no, what resources to help connect them with. And we also teach those teens, you know, how to support them as a friend. What do you do? What do you say to your friends? And that way, if it's the teens sharing information with each other, at least they're sharing the safe disinformation, the correct information, because the most dangerous time in a domestic violence relationship is when they leave. That's right when the abuser realizes he's losing control and they act out in desperation, either killing you or hurting you or doing things you don't want them to do. So we have to be very careful about just telling your friends, oh, you just need to leave, because it can be really dangerous. So,
well, Kelly, before we wrap up, I'd like you to tell us about the film you've got, No Ordinary Love. Talk about that.
We are sponsoring with FSU the premiere of No Ordinary Love. It's a movie with a feature film, award-winning feature film, and it depicts 2 different cases of domestic violence and how they interact. And it also puts to the question that you hear a lot of people say, why don't they just leave? That seems so obvious, right? Why doesn't she just leave? Why doesn't he break up with her? And the movie poses those questions and helps you find out that there's a very complex answer to that. It's not always as easy as one might think to just pack up and leave, and there's many reasons that people stay. So after the film, we're also going to have a survivor speaker who's going to tell us about why she stayed for as long as she did. And we'll discuss the answers to that question, how you can help somebody get out of a relationship like that. It's going to be 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 21st at FSU's Askew Cinema. It's free and open to the public, so come on out and discuss it all with us.
Absolutely. We hope that everybody in Leon County gets out to see that film. Thank you, Kelly. Just ahead in our Deputy on Duty segment, we continue our Black History Month series with Chief Norm Mack, how he's working to help inmates get their lives back on track. Stay tuned.
As technology and social media play a greater role in our lives, so does the ability to abuse them. Digital abuse is the act of using technology as a way of controlling you. Some examples include demanding the ability to keep tabs on you, expecting you to be available all of the time to answer calls or texts, demanding full access to your accounts or electronics, or telling you who you can and cannot interact with on social media. Healthy relationships have healthy boundaries, and this goes for technology too. It's okay to set boundaries on the privacy of your accounts and electronics, as well as being able to control when you're available to talk or text. Sometimes, the use of technology to keep tabs on you can come across like an abuser really cares, and they may use that excuse or tell you that it's for your own protection. One question you may ask yourself is, what do the consequences look like if I don't share this information? Or if I'm not always available to talk? It shouldn't be scary or nerve-wracking to say no. In healthy relationships, there should be a shared understanding of your boundaries with your phones, computers, and accounts, as well as what you consider to be reasonable availability.
On this episode of Leon County Today's Deputy on Duty, we're on the job with Chief Norman Mack. He's currently in charge of operations at the Leon County Detention Facility.
I've been here 26 years, and I don't regret it.
Chief Mack began his career at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office as a correctional officer back in 1995. 2 years later, the rest was history when he got hired in the same position with LCSO.
I came over because I was doing transports for Jefferson County, and I actually had an interaction with some of the guys in booking. And after talking with them, and I decided to come over to Leon County.
Over the years, Chief Mack took advantage of learning opportunities. In 2005, he went back to the academy and received his law enforcement standards. That's commonly referred to as dual certification. He also received Florida Gang Investigators certifications. Through hard work, dedication, and commitment, Mack is now approaching his 26th year with LCSO. He climbed the ranks with promotions before achieving his current leadership role.
From my days as an officer, sergeant, to chief, it really hadn't changed much. You know, you're still caring about people.
Chief Mack is now responsible for overseeing at least 130 employees, and every day is different. The detention facility is much like a small city, and it takes many team members to smoothly facilitate these daily operations. It's equipped with everything needed to handle the care, control, and custody of hundreds of individuals who are detained.
In the run of a day, they serve over 3,000 meals. Everyone has to go to medical, and everyone has to have checkups, 2-week checkups, yearly checkups. We send out sick calls.
And running such a facility is a huge challenge, but with nearly 3 decades of experience under his belt and having worked in almost every unit at the detention facility, Chief Mack has learned a lot from each person he's worked with.
You always remember how someone makes you feel. And as a supervisor, you know, you had someone that actually will pour into you and give you what you need to make that next step. So I've been fortunate.
As far as his secret to longevity in his career,
when I spoke about starting into this career, you know, it was the same time that I got into the church and got married at the same time. So it was the thing of, you know, it's more divine, you know, me getting into this profession when I did, because, you know, as, you know, you help people because you get situations where people need help. And as, you know, it's just making sure someone gets the help they need is pretty much the most important thing.
and that divine calling has played a major role in his success. He tells us he knows working in corrections has a negative stigma of being dangerous and long hours of shift work.
The hours that you work here, it's a camaraderie. You spend almost half your time that you would spend with your family with the individuals that you work with.
But his words of advice, if you are seeking change and looking for a rewarding career to help make a difference in your community, apply for a job as a corrections officer with the Leon County Detention Facility.
You know, it's something about building that camaraderie. When you build that camaraderie, you get more, everyone looks out for each other a little bit more. We know how our families are doing. It's a relationship there, you know, and not just a job anymore. And when that happens, you know, it gets better. And the stress and the day-to-day hustle becomes a little bit easier. It's more of caring about people, you know, having that humanity, understanding that that this is someone's family member.
You can find details right now on leoncountyso.com. For Leon County Today, I'm Angela Green.
Welcome back to Leon County Today. Sheriff, No Ordinary Love, that film that's showing anyone in the community can come out to see that.
Ms. O'Rourke just hit it right on the nail. I mean, absolutely, everybody needs to see that film. Come out and see it. I can't say enough about how important it is to this community.
Absolutely, and we're going to put that QR code up on camera, so if you have your cell phone, you can grab that and get more information. There's information about easy parking on campus to see the film, as well as contact information, dvcctally@gmail.com if you have any other questions. But go out, support the film, and it looks like an interesting dialogue on the safe space afterwards.
Absolutely. Every parent should be there.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you all for joining us for another episode. We'll see you back here next week.